Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to the movie theater lobby. I am Brandon.
And I'm Leia.
And this week, everyone please have a seat. Get your refreshments and your food, as usual, whatever snacks you like. We've got an interesting one on tap this week, Leia. Kind of prophetic for its time,
Yeah,
right? Wouldn't you
real
think?
prophetic, yes.
Especially considering the turmoil
Political climate
that we're
these days.
sitting in right now.
Yeah.
With all that in mind, let's not stress people out too much, or at least try not to. But Leia, what movie are we talking about this week?
Strange Days.
You ready? Yeah, boot it.
So Strange Days, a sci-fi crime thriller deal from 1995.
A neo sci-fi noir crime.
Yeah, let's just throw all the movie adjectives in there. Why not, right? Let's get into this plot just a little bit and then get right the hell out of it, yeah?
Yeah.
30th December, 1999. We get the point of view of one of three thugs as they shake down a restaurant. The cops show up and the racist criminals leg it to the roof, where we, quote-unquote we, because we're falling through the eyes of one of the criminals, jump to the next building, but fall to our untimely death. A screen glitches out, and next we see a man have a freak out, tearing a device off of his head. Meet Lenny Nero, played by the incomparable Ralph Fiennes.
Yes.
A salesman with a heart of gold, right? Sort of.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he's pushing a modern-day futuristic, retro-future, whatever, cyberpunk drug sort of deal.
Of some sort.
We find he's with his middleman supplier named Tick. Because, of course, everyone's got to have those cool cyberpunky nicknames, right?
Yeah, of course.
Turns out Tick is good at getting his hands on some rare, difficult to get a hold of tapes for a tech called Squid. Superconducting quantum interference device. I think that it really seems like a long wait around. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to what it actually does.
Yeah.
I think they just really wanted to use the terminology squid.
They wanted to be techie. Yeah.
That cool name, though.
Yeah.
I dig it.
I like it.
But that's all to say, this is Lenny's bread and butter. He deals in experiences. But he doesn't deal, much like the clip we just saw where it deals with somebody dying at the end, he doesn't deal in blackjack clips.
No blackjack. I don't do blackjack.
I don't deal blackjack clips. It's policy. I got ethics here.
Anyway, let's move on from Lenny. In the mean streets of 1999 LA, riots are rampant. Fires are frequent and extreme violence is everywhere. But let's get back to Lenny again. We follow Lenny as he sets up some deals and directs some new content. But along the way, we discover a woman in distress. She's on the run and some police are hot on her trail. In a tussle, we discover she also happens to be wearing a wig, and underneath that wig is a squid. Not the aquatic variety.
I think they got that.
The techie kind? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make it clear.
Okay, yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah. Boy, think of that.
Yeah.
Running from the law, someone pulls a wig off and there's a live squid under your head. Live or dead.
Or dead.
Way. No matter which way, still would freak me out.
Still would be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. Anyway, she manages to elude the fuzz that are on her tail and she hits up a payphone to call our boy Lenny. Speaking of, he's sitting in his living room. The poor sod pours himself a glass of vodka and settles into a squid tape of his own, one of him from not long ago with a former love interest. He seems happy and in the company of a woman we will come to later know as Fate, played by Juliette Lewis. The very next day, waking up with probably a little bit of a hangover, Lenny hears the news mention the murder of an activist, icon, and rapper, Jericho 1.
The bodies of two men found early this morning under the Hollywood Freeway have been identified as rap star Jericho 1 and band member James Fulton.
Pushing that aside, though, Lenny seizes the day. Lenny gets up to more sales and gets interrupted by an old pal, Max, played by Tom Sizemore. Iris, the girl that we saw in distress earlier with the squid on her head, she stashes a clip in Lenny's car, and just afterward also happens to find Lenny. She's got something to tell him. As they go outside, Lenny's car is towed. I guess that message will have to wait, as urgent as it was. Finally, one last old friend of Lenny's arrives on the scene. She's a no-nonsense, fuck-around-and-find-out type named Mace, or Macy.
Mace,
played by Angela Bassett. She is a badass woman in this movie. She is
awesome in this movie.
She gives no fucks to anybody.
No, I love it.
She's a driver, and en route to pick up a client. A little bit of like a limo driver. of
Kinda,
sorts,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Lenny convinces her to let him ride along and drop him off at a club where his old flame, Faith, happens to be performing. Macy agrees with trepidation and stipulations. Macy isn't here to drive us around, so let's not follow him. Let's get back to our lobby and let this caper go on its own.
It's not what you're interested in here. It's about the stuff that you can't have, right? The forbidden fruit.
I do want to point out, just probably should have put a trigger warning on it before. This movie contains scenes of rape and violence against women, and which are really hard to watch, even for me, which, I mean, that stuff doesn't bother me like some other people do.
Right.
But it was still like kind of icky.
There is a rather disturbing rape scene in this film for certain. Yes. So, okay, Leia, we've gotten through that little business. So cast and crew time. Let's just touch really briefly and then we'll cruise right along.
Yeah. So this movie was directed by Catherine Bigelow. I think this is the second female director that we've talked about.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. She actually didn't write it, though. She just directed it. James Cameron actually wrote it back in 1986.
Yeah, that's when he started the idea, right?
Yeah, he started it back in 1986. He wrote it with actually Catherine Bigelow in mind to direct it in the first place. They kind of split up the jobs in the film. So Cameron focused on the romance, while Catherine focused more on the edginess and the grit of the film.
Yeah,
so
she's really good at that.
That's her specialty. Yeah. After they finished this quote-unquote novel, the gentleman Jay Cox actually turned it into a screenplay. And really, honestly, the only thing he really changed was a little bit of the dialogue. But for the most part, it was exactly what they wrote, because I guess they wrote so much he had to really condense it down.
Sometimes you got to rein in those people that get real wordy.
Yeah. So he finished that in 1992.
So Catherine Bigelow, one of the few, I think 3, at the time when she won her Academy Award for director, she was the first female director.
Big news.
To win the award. Now there's been 3.
Yeah. Still kind of sad.
Still very sad, but very deserving. She makes some really poignant movies. Not all of them without their controversies.
So this one almost nearly destroyed her career.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh boy, this one was a bad performing film.
Yeah.
So good, though. I wish people would have given it more chance.
Not only was it a bad performing film, but some of the stuff that she had in the film, had it been directed by a male, would have been really bad.
Right.
But even just being directed by her, she got a lot of flack for some of the scenes, being too grotesque, being too real. She let 5 years pass before she even directed her next film, which was The Weight of Water. So, I mean, didn't help her career at the time, unfortunately.
But the things that she made so gritty and disturbing were done so for a reason.
Yeah.
All of these atrocities that this film in particular points out are all things that society as a whole just wants to sweep under the rug and ignore that they happen.
And she's putting it in your face and not letting you turn away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
She's making you look at it.
Yeah.
Which is probably why people didn't like it, because it made them uncomfortable.
Very much so, yes. But Catherine Bigelow, also known for the films Near Dark, Point Break, K-19, The Hurt Locker, and so many others.
All great films, truly.
Yeah, really does some good work.
So we've talked about Ralph Fiennes before, so we don't need to go into too much detail about that. I didn't mention last time, though, he is the eldest of 6 children.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, being the eldest, you have a lot of responsibility. So maybe that's why he was so serious when he was doing his
Very
Shakespearean
possibly.
plays and whatnot, you know. Had to be the serious one. He often tells people that his name rhymes with safe signs.
Okay.
Because people get it wrong so much. They call him Ralph, and he's not Ralph.
Not Ralph.
He's Rafe, like safe, and Fines, like signs. Yeah. He actually got the role for this film because he was fresh off of winning an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
Bigelow really wanted an actor that oozed intelligence, complexity, and depth, and she really saw that in Rafe.
Sure.
It wasn't actually James Cameron's first choice. I forget what other actors he was trying to get, but after the film was made and he had watched it, he realized that it was actually the best choice.
Yeah.
Because Fiennes really gave the character Lenny sex appeal, but not just sex appeal, a character that you actually care about.
Yeah, he was super charismatic.
Charismatic,
it was
and
hard
he was
to
kind.
Not watch him.
At the center of his heart, he was a good person, and you really found yourself caring about him throughout the film.
And while he could be a sleazebag, you're still rooting for him.
You're still rooting for him. He's a sleazebag, but he has morals.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, when did that start? Come on, Lenny. This is what people want to see, and you know it.
Can we talk a little bit about Angela Bassett?
I would love to.
All right, let's do so.
That woman. So she plays Laurinette Mason, or Mace.
Mace.
Her rise to fame was in Boys in the Hood.
That's kind of where she got her start.
That's where you kind of, we remember her coming into the scene during that. But since then, she's been in so many things.
Lots of things.
But she was in Contact. She was in Black Panther. She was in Mission Impossible Fallout. Oh, you'd like this one. She was also in BoJack Horseman.
Oh, right.
10 episodes of BoJack. She did American Horror Story. She did 48 episodes of that. She was also in Avengers Endgame, and one that I really love, and I know you really love this one too, Gunpowder Milkshake.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
That was a really good one.
She also got a lot of notoriety with her role as Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do With It, and of course, how Stella got her groove back.
Yeah, you can't go without saying that one. That was kind of like a big one for her.
Yeah. And Leia, can I please mention Critters 4?
Yes, you can. I had that on the list. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. And that is obviously the least of her entries.
So I had mentioned she was in Black Panther. She actually received an honorary degree from Howard University. And Chadwick Boseman, who was in Black Panther, like the main person in Black Panther, he was the student that was assigned to escort her around the campus.
Yeah, but she's not somebody who just has honorary degrees. She has a BA in African American Studies from Yale and a Master's of Fine Arts from Yale.
What a hardworking, amazing woman.
Astounding.
Yeah. She was actually attached to this film from its infancy. So I'm glad that they got her to sign on to this.
Yeah, the sticking point for her, the thing that made her sign on was that her character was such a hard ass.
Yeah.
Like, she was not the damsel in distress. She was an ass-kicking woman.
I think in most of her films, that's how she portrays herself.
She
even
likes to be
in
strong.
How Stella got her groove back.
Yeah.
You know, she's still a strong, woman in that movie. So.
Yeah, it's her journey to feeling herself
empowered.
again.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to let's talk a little bit about Juliette Lewis.
Yeah.
She is, so I have a Law and Order connection.
Of course we do.
Which is going to be far-fetched, so I apologize.
Wow. All right.
This is really far-fetched, but she's the half-sibling of Matthew Lewis. And Matthew Lewis was in 3 episodes of Law and Order from 1990. So there you go.
We got
That's my very far-fetched, very far-removed Law and Order connection.
We're really stretching it now.
It's fine. You know what? It's a connection, and that's all that matters.
Yes. And still, folks, remember, we've never seen an NCIS or a CSI or any of that stuff.
Nope.
Law and Order, none of it.
I've never watched those.
Never watched them.
But they just come up all the time, and I think it's
fun
fascinating.
To talk about. I don't know why. Juliette Lewis, of course, well known for Cape Fear.
Cape Fear was kind of her big first.
That's where she got big notice. Natural Born Killers, of course.
Yep.
From Dusk Till Dawn. Lately in Yellow Jackets and Opus with John Malkovich.
Yeah, she's a incredibly talented actor, and she was actually cast in this film not just because she was an incredibly talented actor, but because she could sing.
She had her own band for a while called Juliette and the Licks.
Yeah, she actually even did a tour.
She did. She took a little break from acting for a few years and toured with her group. It was after this movie, a few years after this movie, that she started that group.
It was really important to Catherine that they found somebody who could sing, so they didn't have to dub over or lip sync any of those lines.
And
so
she's not what I would call like a classical kind of singer.
Oh, she's
but she's got a grungy voice.
Yeah, and I love it.
That's the alternative 90s grunge.
It's almost like
era.
What's her name? Love. Courtney Love.
Courtney Love, yeah.
Yeah, like it's very Courtney Love sounding.
She's got that kind of raspy voice, and that it's great for that style of music. We'll just do a quick mention on Tom Sizemore. Of course, Point Break, Heat, Heart and Souls. Do you remember me talking about Heart and Souls?
Remember, no.
Leia, how can you forget? Heart and Souls stole the Best Actor award from Christian Slater for True Romance and from
that's right.
someone else in that same year.
About that,
and I can't believe, but good for Robert Downey Jr. Anyway, Tom Sizemore also in True Romance, Natural Born Killers, Saving Private Ryan, had a spot in Twin Peaks.
Okay, so he did the movie with Val Kilmer.
Heat.
Yes. He did Heat, too. Yes.
I was just watching Heat yesterday.
It's a good film.
Oh, I love that movie so much. So good. Okay, moving on. A few cameos in this film.
Yeah.
2 that I'm just going to call out, Vincent D'Onofrio and Michael Wincott.
Yeah. And Michael Wincott is interesting because he comes up a lot, but I think if you had just brought him up like cold turkey without like having any, people would be like, who's that? He comes up in a lot of these films.
Yeah, he does. He's
a lot of films.
Especially in the mid or late 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah.
He was everywhere.
Pretty much the same character, though.
pretty much always, yes. What's next? Leia?
Acclaim.
Oh, that segment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my legs. So these are little tiny legs.
Yes.
Little itty
Super
bitty.
small, because my God, I don't think we've had a film that has performed worse.
No,
Leia,
I mean,
I hate to say it.
Not much, yeah. So this one only had 2.17 legs. So this one is a good...
Son of a bitch. Leia's now cleaning some soda that she has spilled on the floor.
Okay, so this one is a good example of how the legs actually reflect how the film has done.
Right.
Because I think we've had some that didn't do as bad as this, but still have lower legs. It really depends on how the first opening weekend does versus,
like
how
we
much
say,
the film is done.
The whole idea of legs is numbers being weird.
Yeah.
I think this one is actually more where the legs are very representative.
Very representative, yes. Domestic box office did about $8 million. Opening weekend was $31,000, but the production budget is what really kills it, because the production budget was about $42 million. I mean, and an opening weekend was limited release, so that's why I only did like $31,000. If you look at the weekend later, which was wide release, it actually did $3.7 million that weekend.
Right. Its first wide release weekend.
Is where it made the majority of its money and then just tanked from there. Word of mouth, and everyone's like, "Ooh, don't see that one."
It's such a good movie,
Which,
though.
I'm not saying don't go see it. A lot of it has to do with what's going on at the time and people's feelings of cops and government, and I don't think we all quite knew what to feel when that movie came out. Right. She was way ahead of where we were already feeling.
Because at that time, it was just after the Rodney King riots.
Yeah.
And while, of course, a lot of America was feeling kind of negative about police, they still had that Americana rah, rah, rah law enforcement feeling. Criticizing the law enforcement, I think, was a big negative to this movie. This film also was throwing rape and misogyny in your face.
Yeah, like in your face.
Yeah, and a lot of kind of uncomfortable violence, making statements about how the economy was in the tank at the time. She was definitely, let's see, so it's 2025 now compared to 1995. She was 30 years ahead of her time.
Yeah, seriously.
Because that is the world we're living in right now.
Yeah, it does feel very reminiscent of a world we're living in now.
We have an insane autocrat as our president, and who is single-handedly destroying our entire economy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So both Strange Days and the movie True Lies, which is also James Cameron's film, were both part of a multi-million-dollar production between Lightstorm Entertainment and 20th Century Fox. However, the financing was not equally distributed between the two films. Strange Days initially only got a budget of about $30 million, where True Lies actually got a budget of about $70 million.
Critically, as well, the film got really mixed. And again, I think it was...
Really mixed. Strangely
and
mixed.
I think a lot of it was that the critics were still stuck in that we have not had our eyes this offended before.
Yeah.
Kind of mentality.
Well, it says rose-colored glasses mentality, where we don't want to face that reality.
Critics at the time were saying this film was too violent.
Too violent, too disgusting,
extreme.
Too real.
But when you look at this film compared to some others in our current day culture, this film is incredibly tame.
Roger Ebert gave it a 4 out of 4, which
Yeah.
For Roger Ebert, that's like, all right. He's usually pretty critical.
Yeah,
of
usually he is.
most films.
But I think he was the one that was looking at this one as being ahead of its time.
Yeah, he said that he really applauded her ability to force her audience to deal with reality, what's happening right in front of them on that screen, instead of just allowing the audience to just kind of process the movie as a routine action, which is how we process most films.
Yeah, it literally put it in your face.
Yeah.
It was a first-person perspective
in a lot
for
of ways.
a lot of the violence.
Yeah.
Not particularly award-winning on this one.
It did get a nomination at the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films.
Yeah, the Saturn Awards, right?
Got nominated for Best Science Fiction Film, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Director and Best Writer. So it did get some nominations, but I mean, I think that was it.
That was really about it.
Yeah. There is a small cult following that's happened over the years where people have really embraced this film. And a lot of them compare it to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. There's actually a scene in the film where Lenny is using Squid to watch a clip of his past with Faith, like you had talked about in the beginning. And Faith throws a blue towel at him and says, "Dry me."
Dry me.
It's actually a reference to Blade Runner, where Zahora throws a towel at Deckard and says the same line.
Yeah, throw a tagline at you on this one. I've only got one just to throw out there real fast. New Year's Eve, 1999. Anything is possible. Nothing is forbidden.
We've already talked about Blade Runner. We talked about the Rodney King verdict.
The beatings and then the verdict.
Which happened April 29th, 1992. And then there was all those riots that happened. And Catherine Bigelow said she actually was part of the cleanup process after those riots, and it really affected her. And so that inspired a lot of the inspiration she had for this film.
Especially like the street settings. And the outside world is very chaotic. Everything interior is very isolated from the outside world, it seems. Like when you're in the clubs and when you're
guarded, it's under closed doors.
But outside, the world's on fire.
Yeah. The character of LAPD Chief Strickland is actually likely inspired by real-life LAPD Chief Daryl Gates. He's actually the one who became notorious for mishandling the Rodney King beating in 1991 and the Los Angeles riots in 92. Of course, we talked about James Cameron writing this film in 1982, so clearly this was written about something else. He had something else in mind. But as Catherine was directing this film, these were these types of things she pulled from for inspiration for her directing this film.
To give life to the world as a whole, to give a lot of visual inspiration.
Yeah. And James Cameron didn't write the whole thing right away in 1982. It was kind of where he started with this idea.
Concept of a plan.
Concept of a plan.
Some people say.
This film actually was broadcast on BBC Two on December 29th, 1999. And it's the same day that the events of the film began.
That's where it all starts. Maybe it was done on purpose. Who knows?
And it was actually filmed during the events that unfolded during the O.J. Simpson murder trial, too. So that was another reason why the film maybe didn't feel so good to some people.
Race relations, big on the brain.
Yeah.
So the movie's title, if you're a Doors fan, you may notice the name. The Doors have an album and a song called Strange Days. In the movie, there is a band that is playing a cover of that song. The band that's playing is actually a real band called Prong.
Yep.
And they actually collaborated with, do you want to say who they collaborated with?
The keyboardist from The Doors?
Yeah.
His name's Ray Manzarek. Yeah. I was looking at some of the lyrics for the song, and there's one little bit of lyric that I thought was really poignant to the film. And it says, "Strange days have found us, and through their strange hours, we linger alone, bodies confused, memories misused as we run from the day to a strange night of stone."
That's pretty poignant.
I thought,
to be honest.
Great title for this film. I mean, the music, it fits the feel of the film.
Another fun little connection to The Doors is that Michael Wincott was in the movie The Doors.
Yeah.
And he played real-life producer
Paul Rothchild.
So in this movie, he played producer Philo Gant. Yeah.
I actually have another connection to The Doors.
All right.
Judging by his birth and death year, which was listed on the news report about Jericho 1's murder, he is a member of the 27 Club. There's a lot of entertainers that have actually died at the age of 27. Yeah. And some of those include Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and Jim Morrison. So there you go. The frontman for The Doors, 27, and Jericho 1 died at 27 as well. So I don't know if that was a coincidence or if that was intentional, but speaking of intentional nods to things, there's a scene where Lenny is being talked to by Mace, and he's having a breakdown, and he needs to save Faith. And she's telling him, life is right here. It's right now. She says, memories are meant to fade.
Memories were meant to fade, Lenny. They're designed that way for a reason.
And he's crumpling down onto the ground. If you look at the wall, there's actually a picture of elephants on the wall. And she was asked once if that was intentional, because elephants, if you don't know, elephants are known for their exceptional memory.
Right. Did Bigelow say it was intentional?
She said she'd have to ask the art department because she wasn't sure about that one.
Right.
So she intentionally didn't do it, but she's not saying that somebody
else may have.
Somebody else may have done that intentionally.
At the very least, what a neat coincidence.
It is a pretty neat coincidence at the very least.
So before we get off of coincidences and connections, that segment you had just talked about where Mace says, right here, right now, that was sampled for the song Right Here, Right Now by Fatboy Slim.
Yeah.
Right here, right now.
I still love that music video. I remember when I
still one of
saw
my
it the
favorites.
first time on MTV. So weird, but so cool. Oh, also, this film was adapted into a comic book released by Marvel. 48 pages. I've never read it. I can say that if you're trying to fit a one-shot 48-page comic book to cover 2.5 hours worth of movie with really intense, poignant subtext, oh boy, it's got to be a mess.
It's got to be a mess.
This is my supposition.
Okay.
And I'm happy if somebody tells me I'm wrong. I cannot imagine it's a really great adaptation.
So there's a scene approximately 25 minutes in where Lenny meets Keith, the attorney. A drink is visible on the table, and it looks like a martini, but it has three pearl onions in the glass instead of an olive, which you'd normally see an olive in a martini, but there's 3 pearl onions in there. It's actually called a Gibson, likely a reference to William Gibson, who is recognized as the godfather of cyberpunk fiction.
Oh.
And he coined the term cyberspace in 1984's novel Neuromancer. And the squid technology in the film is actually very similar to SimStims, which is described in the novel Neuromancer.
We know James Cameron to be very into sci-fi, futuristic sort of stuff. I mean, look at the Terminator, Avatar. I mean, he's definitely a man who's into his sci-fi. So to say that he would not be aware of that, I bet he probably knew of it. At the time this movie was made, Leia, they didn't have a really good first-person kind of camera
Yeah,
rig.
wait. Can I say something? Out with the old, in with the new.
Oh, right. You know what?
Okay, go.
No, you go. This is your thing.
No, you got it.
Okay. At the time, they didn't really have cameras that would do what they wanted this to do.
Mhm.
I mean, you'd have those giant filming cameras, but those are too big to be as personal in the first-person view as Catherine Bigelow had wanted it. So she commissioned Lightstorm Entertainment's research division. Very fortunate for her.
Yeah, I was going to say,
happened
what?
to be owned by James Cameron. So
Who was her husband at the time.
So she had an in with the guy.
Yeah. It must be nice.
They worked to develop a camera.
For a full year.
For a full year, they worked on this. And they miniaturized to the point where it was down to the size of a camera you could fit in the palm of your hand.
It weighed only 8 pounds.
Super small.
Mm-hmm.
And they would put it on it had interchangeable lenses. It still worked off of 35 millimeter. It had follow focus and video assist. All of these things are things you would not find in a camera that small.
And it was also still mounted on a Steadicam.
Put on a Steadicam rig.
Where you could wear it.
Where you could wear it and allowed the actor to get in close, kind of keep it in an area where it would mimic about the height of a human eye.
Yeah.
There's your in with the...
Out with the old,
there
in
we go.
with the
Yes,
new.
that.
Yeah, the scenes where they did the squid scenes, like the point of view camera type scenes, those are actually choreographed weeks in advance before they would even do them. They had to choreograph the scenes to make sure that they came out the way that they wanted them to look.
Yeah, it was a whole new process.
It was they completely revolutionized how you would use a camera like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that camera got used in other ways for other productions after that. But wow, I mean, that's pretty crazy. I want to talk about the music really quick because this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a snowball. So originally, Michael Kamen was hired. We talked about Michael Kamen before.
Mm-hmm.
He was originally hired to do the score, but then he was replaced by the French duo Deep Forest, who even went as far to team up with Peter Gabriel to create an original song for the movie, which is titled While the Earth Sleeps.
Mm-hmm.
Then Deep Forest was further replaced by composer Graham Revell. He did The Crow. Graham teamed up with Laurie Carson to write an original song for the final scene of the movie titled Fall in the Light. It snowballs into all these original songs because they got rid of someone else and brought someone new in. And they're like, oh, we got this song now, you can leave.
Yeah.
Let's bring this person in. Now, we got a song now, you can leave.
Well, the other funny part about music with this film is that there's a sequence in the film where they're in sort of like a club rave. That was an actual rave that was being put on. And they just had permission to be filming there. The rave was called Millennium.
Mm-hmm. You had to pay $10 to enter.
Yeah. And it featured artists like Aphex Twin,
D-Light,
Lady Miss Keir, Doc Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Really a pretty good rave, dude.
They spent $750,000 on that event. And it was from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. and 5 people were hospitalized due to ecstasy overdose. So these were not just like hired extras. These are people who paid to go to a rave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, they also brought in 50 off-duty cops
Well,
to control the 10,000 ravers.
probably have to
Yeah.
at that point.
They got paid.
Damn it. Why do I always get it wrong? Out with the old, in with the new, right?
Yes.
The car that Lenny drives
Yeah.
in this film is a Mercedes-Benz S500.
hmm
This was 94. Leia, that car was not out
No.
yet. They actually got a production prototype of that
To use
car
in the film.
to use in this film
Mhm.
direct from Mercedes-Benz.
And it was a car that was meant to come out in 1999,
Yeah,
I believe, too.
yep.
So
So it was a few years ahead of its time.
you were seeing the future.
Indeed. Not so much so with the mini disc technology.
Okay, so wait, I got to say something
Yes,
about
please
mini disc
do. All
technology.
right, give it to us.
I'm not rubbing it in, but I went to Japan when I was 15.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Oh, my.
And I bought a mini disc player when I was over there.
And why
because
wouldn't you?
in 1995, they were so expensive in the US, they were dirt cheap in
Yeah.
Japan because they had been using them already for years.
Oh, sure.
So I had a mini disc player. I think I was the only one who ever had one in my friend circle.
You were the only person that I personally knew that had a mini disc.
And I got to be honest with you, best technology that ever happened.
Yeah?
And super sad that it didn't last longer
Right.
because they were smaller than CDs.
Mhm.
They were easy to write and overwrite. They were like
Yeah.
a tape,
Yeah.
except they were a CD. I mean, they were like the best of both worlds and
Just didn't get adopted.
and it's too bad because they were awesome. I'm just telling you from firsthand experience, I was obsessed. And
Right.
they didn't skip like a CD player.
No.
Remember the Walkmans you used to have in
Oh,
your
they
car?
were awful.
You hit a bump and it was like,
You would continue singing and you'd be like, oh, damn it. Now I look like a fool
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm singing. Yeah.
yeah, mini disc players didn't do that.
No.
And they were like the size of a wallet. They were so cool.
Super small.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out that
Yeah,
they
I think
were,
that's necessary.
if you didn't experience
Leia,
them.
you were ahead of the time.
They were super cool.
30 years ahead of your time.
So a soundtrack was made for this film, and an additional 60,000 promotional CD-ROMs were produced outside of the soundtrack with other bands on it from the rave and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But it was only made and produced for the college special issue of Rolling Stone magazine. So there are 60,000 CD-ROMs out there that have music from this film that nobody else can get anywhere. They probably got mostly thrown out by this
Probably,
point.
with
There's
the
probably not very
AOL
many.
the free month of AOL internet access or whatever it is.
Right.
All right.
I think I'm wrapped up here.
Yeah, Leia, I don't really
I'm
have
buttoned.
much either.
I'm buttoned tight.
We really streamlined this one today.
We did.
Let's just get back to our present, our future, past, present, future. We're here now. And
We're here.
we're here and let's get everyone out of here because people got stuff to do.
Yeah, but when you all leave us for today, stop by the movietheaterlobby.com anytime, or just send us a message at the movietheaterlobby@gmail.com. Or for more consistent interaction, check us out on Blue Sky at The Movie Lobby, or find us on YouTube at The Movie Theater Lobby.
And while you're on Blue Sky, if you really want to, find me, Brandon, at BrandMC. And then Leia, where do they find you?
You can find me, Leia McLeavy, at LM Nerd Room on all of the previously mentioned socials, and at lmnerdroom@gmail.com.
Right. And then Leia, since we're hoping people come back next week, what do they have to look forward to for that?
So next week, we're going to cover the movie Sinister.
Yeah, we're going to get a little scary, a
We're
little
gonna get
creepy.
a little scary,
Honestly,
a little creepy.
One of my favorite all-time horror films.
Yeah,
Not the second one.
no.
Let me make that clear. Not the second one.
You guys couldn't see his face, but that was good. He's
The
like, whoa,
first
whoa.
one, I just want to be on record.
I think we get it.
Okay. All right. So anyway, incredibly excited for that. So Leia, thank you everybody for stopping in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We're at that point in the show.
We are.
Thank you everybody. We appreciate your time and attention, and thank you for coming back with us again. And Leia, thank you
And thank you.
for this kind of speedy little brief one. And we're just going to say, we'll see you all next week on
The Movie Theater Lobby.
Bye.
Bye.
You know one of the ways that movies are still better than playback? Because the music comes up, there's credits, and you always know when it's over. It's over!